Are you thinking of moving to Woodinville, Washington? Well, there are pros and cons to this area, and I just spent a morning driving around in there, taking some video for you guys so you can see what it's really like, and I want to share some of the pros and cons of this area so you can decide if it's right for you, if it's something you're considering before you take the plunge and move out there. I wanted to show you where it is so you can kind of have that in your mind. I think when you're moving to a new area, it all looks the same. It's very confusing. So looking here, I'll kind of zoom out to the greater Seattle area. So Woodinville is a suburb of kind of the Redmond Bellevue area. So a lot of people who relocate here are coming for tech jobs and they want to work on the east side of the lake. This is the big lake. We have a lot of lakes. When I was a kid, they would always say it's by the lake. And I was like, which lake are we talking about here? The lake is usually Lake Washington. That's our big lake. But there's also Lake Sammamish over here. Lake Union, you might have heard of South Lake Union, which is where a lot of the Seattle tech companies are relocating. But east of Lake Washington is Bellevue, and west of Lake Washington is Seattle. And it's kind of hard to get, we're limited on our land mass. We've got all this water, traffic is heavy along I-5. So there's just some limitations of getting around. So if you're going to live in Woodinville, it would be better if you were working here on the east side. If not, you could drive down and cross over the 520 bridge, which is a toll bridge. You could cross across the I-90 bridge, which is free. That'll bring you into the South Seattle. You might need to come back up. And then you can also go over the top either on the freeway here or going across this road. And which one is faster may depend on traffic and the time of day. So you do have options, but it's not like a straight diagonal. We are also working on public transportation options to make this a little bit easier, but keep an eye on that depending on when you watch this video. That may or may not be available. So Woodinville is here just north of Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, and it's along Highway 522, which is a pretty big thoroughfare kind of leaving out of town. Now, when you first arrive in Woodinville, it's going to feel like an interesting combination of old and new. It's very Pacific Northwest. It's very green. There are a lot of trees, as you might have guessed, put the wood in Woodinville, right, with the trees there. But a lot of it is kind of sleepy, older, agricultural feeling. There are a lot of bottomlands there, which don't have great drainage, so you can't build on them. And you end up having some of these very expensive neighborhoods right by kind of unbuildable land that tends to get used for things like growing sod, which is grass that you dig up and plant in a new house, or having kind of farm-looking places, sort of agricultural. I wouldn't necessarily call it rundown, but some of them are rundown locations along the highway. And then you have these interesting touristy areas, which is not a huge area, but there are a couple of blocks that are very touristy, which are kind of the wine country component of Woodinville. So like we had a family friend come from out of town. He was actually our college buddy's father. So my husband and I were 20. This guy was 50. He's from Florida. He comes to visit Seattle on a business trip, and we get asked to like take him out, like show him around. So we ask him what he wants to do. He wants to go to Woodinville wine country, and there are absolutely no grapes growing here. Western Washington is a terrible region for growing grapes because we don't get enough heat in the summer. It tends to be not enough heat units. As far as that 75-degree weather just doesn't ripen it like the 95-degree weather does in Eastern Washington. So what's happened is a lot of the farms where they grow the grapes are in Eastern Washington, like Wenatchee, Lake Chelan, those types of areas. And then they take them over the mountains where all the rich people that like to drink wine are. And then they have tasting rooms. And I've started to see more and more tasting rooms in other touristy areas like Leavenworth, for example, which is our small Bavarian village in the mountains of the Cascades right there. So it's probably an hour to Leavenworth. It's a cutesy kind of, we'll call it a tourist trap in the most loving way possible because I love going there. And it's very popular as a day trip or an overnight weekend trip to Seattle. So anyway, this family friend wanted to go to the wine tasting rooms, and he ended up flirting shamelessly with the bartender girl because he was divorced and maybe drinking a little bit too much. So it ended up being kind of awkward for us, but it was all fine. It was all fine. But you can definitely have those types of people. There are bicycle tours that arrive here. There used to be a dinner train that would take people here. And so you can go walking, you can go with your bridal shower entourage, whatever. You could bring your kids and they just don't drink anything and they can look at the cheeses and the other parts of the shop. But you can go get flights of different kinds of wine and taste wine as much or as little as you want. So that's certainly an activity there that's a draw. Whenever you have in real estate, there's this concept of like grouping together of different types of businesses. We have a different part of town called Linwood, where there are a lot of furniture businesses. So it's kind of known. If you want to shop for this type of thing, this is the part of town you go to. And Woodinville happens to be that for wine tasting rooms. Anyway, that's something that's there. You'll see tourists there. And then there are a lot of nice accompanying bistros and delis and those types of things for just a couple of blocks. This is actually where my ladies' church group likes to go for birthdays every month. We say, oh, let's celebrate the September birthdays and go out to dinner or something to one of these places. So it's a lot of fun. And that's one of the things to do in Woodinville. Another pretty popular thing that you'll see people doing in Woodinville is bicycling. So if you like to road bike, meaning with the thin tires on the streets, and as opposed to mountain biking, which is a different sport that can be done elsewhere, like up in the mountains, but you'll see people with all the, Louis Armstrong kind of, is that the guy? Lance Armstrong. He's in the gear and the spandex, the clip-on pedals and everything with the leaning down handlebars. If you like to bike that way and you're like, oh, I want to bike for 40 miles or something, there are a lot of people that do that around Woodinville. It's scenic, kind of rolling hills, a lot of quieter roads, country roads where there's maybe 45-mile-per-hour traffic, but not a constant onslaught of traffic. So that's an option that is fairly common there, little biker groups and things like that. And then also the other thing that I see, which is kind of unique to this area, is horses and equestrian property. So if you like to ride horses, it's very expensive to do so in Seattle because there's no land there. There's not enough room for pastures and stalls and running around and with a horse. I used to ride horses as a kid, and I remember having to drive for like 45 minutes to go from my house, which is in Shoreline, just north of Seattle, over here to like the Woodinville area. And there are other stables. There's some in Bothell and Maltby and Snohomish, and there's bridle trails in Bellevue. So there are other places that you can ride, but kind of getting out into the country helps with a little bit cheaper land, the more acreage and that type of a thing. So if you are interested in the horse equestrian sports, that's a place to go and look. My latest experience with that was driving out there to pick up manure for my vegetable garden. And they were all set up. It was like this place advertising on Craigslist, free manure. I was like, this is for me. And I drove out there, and their setup was really like they had a forklift that they could, I don't know if that, a track hoe, something, a big truck with a bucket on it, and they could lift up the manure and drop it into the back of your pickup truck. And I was like, I don't have a pickup truck. I have the minivan. And so we are not going to be doing that. But I had bought like these giant Rubbermaid tubs, the kind that you store Christmas decorations in your attic. So I had brought all of those, and I got out my little pitchfork and I dug all of my manure, and then they were really heavy. And I loaded my minivan full of that, and then I took it home, and I was a happy camper. So I know there are enough horses out there to make that happen. The other thing that I was going to say is that there is some really expensive real estate out here too. I don't want you to feel like it's all farmy and woodsy and rednecks or something. No. I just went like a month ago to a new home construction site where they were building 8 homes approximately that were $3 to $4 million homes, 3,000 to 4,000 square feet, big, beautiful. I'll try to show some video of that to you guys so you can get an idea for what some of these homes were like. But this is definitely an in-demand area. That's why I'm kind of saying the old meets the new. The old people are the ones with a lot of acreage and horses, and maybe they have woods and maybe it's hard to build or something else is going on. But the new people are having custom homes built, and they're very nice. And there are a lot of course, in between places where there are developments and housing and, regular houses from $1 to $2 million. So it's a more expensive place to live overall because of its proximity to Redmond and Bellevue. There are a lot of tech workers, and because our commuting is so bad, anything we can do to get in proximity of where we work is money, baby. We want to be close so we have a shorter commute, and you're going to have to pay to get there. Otherwise, you're going to be 30, 40 minutes, 60 minutes in the car getting back and forth to work. And some people would rather make that time for money exchange by paying to live close. So welcome, tech workers. We are glad to have you. If you only want to pay $1 million for a house, we can find you something too, but it may not be in Woodinville. But we'll see. We'll look at some options. You never know what's going to be out there depending on your tastes and your preferences and everything. If you wanted to do something older and smaller, we may have a few things up our sleeve for you. So don't let that scare you away. And we can also always look at townhomes, condos, other less expensive starter home types of things that you can see what you can get for $500,000 and see if that meets your needs. But I always tell people to look at 3 different categories. Number 1 is the location. Number 2 is the type of house. And number 3 is the price that you're willing to pay. So Woodinville is a premium location. So you can either get a smaller house at your price range, or you can increase your price range to get a nicer house. But if you want to be in Woodinville, there is a cost of entry, and we'll look at that together based on how the market is when you see this video. So overall, I would say Woodinville is very clean, very low crime. I don't see homelessness there. I don't see graffiti there. I see a few small businesses. It kind of feels sparse from the business perspective. I talked about that kind of enclave of cute touristy wine shops and bistros. There's a really fancy place near there called the Herb Farm, which has been all the rage for have you ever eaten at the Herb Farm? Because it's very expensive. I think it's up to $350 per person for one meal there. So you would go there for your anniversary or your 40th birthday or something like that. And they have maybe 8 different courses. So you get to taste a lot of different food. It's done by excellent chefs. And then if you want to pay a little more, you can get wine pairings with everything. So you have, the white wine with the fish and the red wine with the beef, or whatever the fancy people thought would match up together, right? That's not really my scene. I have yet to go to the Herb Farm, but I do have a big birthday coming up actually tomorrow. So maybe I'll talk someone into that now that it's on my mind. But we'll see. Anyway, if you like going out and having splurges, there are opportunities there. If you want to just go to the grocery store and the rec center and live more frugally, there are those options too. I feel like it's a pretty laid back area. It's not a place where people are really all dressed up or judging you on how you look. I should know. I'm often very casual when I'm not at work. And that's just the Seattle vibe. Most people are very ready for rain. You never know when you're going to get rained on. You're always going to have your rain jacket. You don't spend that much time on your hair, etc. But you don't even have to put on makeup. A lot of professionals, men and women, a lot of professional women do not wear makeup to work, maybe lipstick, but that's it. So if you are more country and a little less city, you're going to fit right in here. If you do like to dress up, that's fine. There's actually a little bit more, I would say, formality and fashion and spending money on looks and appearances in Bellevue. So if that's your scene, you have Bellevue Square to shop at, which is great high-end mall, and you have a lot of options there. So I don't want you to feel like you're missing out, but it's not a requirement to enter this space. I went to school in North Carolina, and it was a whole different scene as far as full makeup going to class. It was 100 degrees. You're sweating, walking 20 minutes up this hill from the freshman dorms at the bottom of the hill to where all the classes were at the top of the hill, right? Like just, it was a mess. It was a mess. A lot of people had frizzy hair concerns, etc. That's not our scene. Our scene is after work, I'm going to get my inflatable kayak and take my kid out paddling on the Duwamish River. After work, we're going to get our bikes and go down this Duwamish River Trail. We're going to go to Little League. I actually was an all-star softball player, if you can believe that. And so they had fields here in Woodinville where the all-star team played, very special during the summer when it was very hot. And I remember both my sister and I did it. And so when it wasn't my game day, the family would ride our bikes along the trail. It's the Burt Gilman Trail, and then it becomes the Duwamish River Trail. And we would ride our bikes to where that baseball field was. And then there's also, you could ride your bikes to the wineries. Chateau Ste. Michelle Winery in that area has like outdoor concert venues. So you can kind of be out in the summer bicycling and drinking wine and eating cheese and sitting on the grass. And they have good bands there. They have bands that you would recognize. So I think that that's kind of a fun, kind of hipster upscale, but also dirty little kids biking for an hour, blending together, come as you are type of event. Anyway, it's fairly laid back. There are cool things to do, but it's not super judgy. Oh, and I looked up who some of the artists were. So this summer they had like 10 bands come, but Winona Judd was one and the Indigo Girls were one. I thought those were two of the more famous ones that I recognized, and I am not up on bands. So if I know it, I'm sure you've heard of those people. Okay, they have a farmer's market in Woodinville from 10 to 2 on Saturdays during the warm half of the year. No one wants to come out in the middle of the rain. But a lot of little towns and areas around here do have farmers markets, and it's kind of a fun way to like rub shoulders and meet and greet. You can get local honey. They have a couple like food vendors actually like making and selling food there, which is always what my kids want. They have sausages, meats, and fish fresh that you can buy to take home. They have, fruits and vegetables, of course. And one of the things that they have is these beautiful flowers. So there's a whole group of people who have like flower gardens up north. We're really famous for our tulip gardens. You might have seen pictures like Seattle tourist pictures, or even some of my own pictures on social media where it's just like, boom, huge arrays of like tulips striped out in all these different colors. You feel like you're in Holland or something. And this is actually where the people from Holland settled when they came to farm at Washington State, not in Woodinville, but further north in Skagit Valley. So that's probably an hour, 45 minutes to an hour north of you. So you can definitely go see those. But there are other families that are, I don't recall where they're from, but there are other groups of people who are up there farming flowers. And so all summer they have vendors at all of these farmers markets selling huge, beautiful, gorgeous, fresh bouquets of flowers. And they just stand there and they assemble the bouquets while you watch. You could order something specific if you want, and then they put them out. There may be 20, 25 bucks, something, and you can get a gorgeous fresh bouquet to take home. Just a wonderful gift, a wonderful thing for yourself to make your home amazing. And they're just so pretty and colorful that I first saw them as a kid when they were at the Pike Place Market, and now we have a lot more farmers markets around here, and these beautiful bouquets. They have local honey, but I want to say like local honey is a little bit harder to do here. I was just chatting with somebody at the fair because every year we love going to the Evergreen State Fair in Monroe, which is pretty close to Woodinville as well, and they have all the like 4-H kids and their sheep and their cows and the Grange groups and the small fruit growers associations and all of that farmy stuff. And so I was talking with the lady at the honeybee group because I myself have tried to raise honeybees for years, and I had to stop because every winter my bees would die, and I wasn't treating them for mites because I didn't like the idea of putting mite insecticide inside of the beehive. But that's pretty much what you have to do to keep the bees free of mites, which are a parasite for them, so that they can be strong and healthy and hopefully survive the winter. But the problem is that it's so damp here. It's kind of just like, it doesn't rain a lot. A lot of people think they're like going to get pounded on with these heavy showers. No, it's more like it'll rain here and there throughout the day a little bit, but it creates a lot of cool humidity. It's not cold enough to snow and freeze and dry everything out. It's just kind of wet enough that we feel ugh, and the bees feel ugh. And when that cold humidity gets in the hive is warm, and so it goes up, and then it gets cold and it condenses, and so it like rains, and within the hive the water leaks down and it chills the bees, and it's just not a good environment for them. And so apparently we don't have like local native honeybees here. It's just not a good climate for them. So anyway, apparently even the professionals lose about half of their hives in the summer, or in the winter, which seems like a lot, but we just appreciate what they do all the more, right? So I like to just, again, touch on crime and safety. Woodinville is considered very safe, a low crime area. Always keep your wits about you, especially if you've been drinking or if you're in that kind of bar tourist area that could be targeted. But I mean, like, I never worry about getting pickpocketed or anything like that. And it's, I think, much better than Seattle, the west side of Lake, where the Seattle kind of communist or socialist or whatever they call themselves, governmental parties are in power, and we just get a little bit less law enforcement going on over there, and it's kind of gotten more out of hand. The east side keeps it on lock. They are buttoned down over there. Downsides, traffic. So one of the main downsides is the traffic on State Route 522 during rush hour can get very congested going back and forth. A lot of people, especially like blue collar careers, like contractors, cleaning ladies, plumbers, electricians, a lot of them live in Monroe, and then they're coming with their trucks and servicing all over the Seattle area, and they're all coming on that same road, which is State Route 522. So that can be congested. I don't know. I think Woodinville is great. It doesn't have the urban walkable vibe that some places do. There are other areas that are springing up, like right off the freeway. There's a Chipotle, there's parks, there's baseball fields, kind of community clusters of areas where people would have as their destination to go there and do their shopping. But if you want that, like, I step out my door and I'm like in the middle of London or something, walking to the shops, that's not really how it's going to be. It's a car. You need a car. And the schools are great. Woodinville is served by the North Shore School District, which is really good. And they have some top rated schools there. There's Woodinville High School, Leota Middle School. They're private schools. So a lot of educational options. A lot of people with enough money to buy a $3 or $4 million home are also putting their kids in private school. But overall, you're having a pretty highly educated, fairly wealthy workforce in this area, and their kids are getting educated in a similar vein. If you're driving into Bellevue on 405, you're going to come across the freeway. 405 is a freeway. It's a loop that goes east around the lake. It's a loop for the I-5 freeway, which is our main interstate from Canada to California. So this loop has the option of going on toll roads, toll lanes really, which are flexible. So there are maybe 5 lanes altogether, and if two of them are charging you a toll, so you can get a little device on your windshield that velcros up there behind your mirror, and it scans that. That's the cheapest way. Or you can register your license plate, which is the medium way, or you can just drive in there and they'll look at your license plate and mail you a bill, and that's the most expensive way. But typically the rate that they charge, it could be free, it could be $10. It depends on how long you're driving in the lanes and how much other traffic there is. Their goal is to always keep those lanes free flowing, so that if you need to be somewhere fast, like, oh, I have a job interview, I'm late, like I gotta go, like you have a road, so section of lanes that's moving. And then if you're like, oh, I'm early, I gotta kill time, I don't wanna pay for it, you can be in the slower traffic, and that's fine too. So that's kind of the time value of your time driving versus getting to where you're going faster. Sometimes I pay for it, sometimes I don't, just depending on what else I have going on. But that's good to know. Again, if you're living in a $4 million house and you want a faster commute, you have that option, but you just need to be willing to pay for it. Again, there's public transportation. There are buses, not a lot in this area, but some. And then we're also working on bringing that light rail that runs along I-5 currently from Linwood to the SeaTac Airport. We're stretching it south into Federal Way and also building it across Lake Washington, going east over the 520 bridge and serving that area as well. So it's possible, depending on when you read this, if you wanted to go from Woodinville to the light rail, you could then ride the light rail into the city of Seattle. The problem with Seattle is it's very hard and expensive to find parking. Okay, so let's look at housing and the cost of living here, because if you want to move here, like this is what you're going to be looking at. I'm logged into the Northwest MLS right now, which is for realtors only, but you'll get the general idea. So you can see the only screen I have on here right now is the homes are in Woodinville. So this could be a $300,000 condo. This could be a $3 million house. In Woodinville, it's the 5th of September. We have 113 options for sale at the moment. So let's look at the results in a single line format to kind of give us an idea of what's happening here. So some of these don't have a price. They're doing something weird. And then some of these are rentals. So you can see the monthly rental fees are between $2,500 a month and $6,000 a month. And then we get into sales. So here's like a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo. That's $300,000. Here's the first 2-bedroom condo. Oh, that's a residence. We don't even have any 2-bedroom condos. So then we switch over to the residence. See, this code is residence. And the cheapest one we have right now is $700,000. So let's see what that looks like just to have an idea. Okay, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,000 square feet. Looks like a rental house for just more than $500,000. This can be yours. Okay, so you could live in there, you could rent it out after you leave, whatever you want. And then look, we're only, if we start from here, 10 results in, we're already over $1 million. So there's only one house that's less than $1 million. No, 2 houses that are less than $1 million, and this one's at $1 million. Okay, just to give you a perspective. And then going up to the most expensive ones, we see that they're $3 million, $4 million, $6 million. So let's look at the $3 million, since that seems to be a popular price range. It's probably a development with a lot going on here. So these aren't even are these standalone houses? They look like they're, all right, maybe these are standalone, but they're so close together that they probably are in a condominium homeowners association. Look, there's a $500 HOA dues along with this home. So that's probably all new construction type stuff. Anyway, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds. We can always look at what's available when you're coming to market, but there are some nice homes that aren't in this development. Okay, so here's an example of a home that's not in that other development. 2.6 million. Big home, classic interior, like not necessarily super fancy. It's been updated, it's renovated. It's not super modern or anything like that. This is very typical. Probably has a great backyard, maybe a hot tub in the backyard, maybe about 3/4 of an acre of land. Yeah, 0.8 acres of land. So this is very, typical for the nicer homes in the area. But just to give you an idea for the statistics at this moment in time, which is 2024, we're getting, median price point is around 1.2 million. A 2-bedroom apartment might rent for $2,500. And it offers, I would say, compared to like Kirkland or Redmond, those areas are more expensive. So you're going to have a little more space, a little more privacy. If having a bigger yard is important to you, then this would be a better place to look than some of those areas. You probably, if your budget is around 1 to 1.5 million or more, then we could do something good for you here. If it's less than 1 million, we're going to be looking at a condo or a townhouse because we're just not seeing any one, I think, two houses that were less than that price point here at this moment in time out of 130 homes. So check those out. I will try to make videos on all of them. I'm cranking out the videos as best I can. So let me know in the comments which areas you're most interested in, and I'll try to prioritize those. Until then, I'll see you on the next video.